For the first time in more than 5.5 years, we finally tonight have a few new answers to a question that has loomed over Indiana and over the town of Delphi. Who killed Abby Williams and Libby Gervais?
From the end of the bridge to, you got to go through. Now, I believe that the bodies were found about 50.
Born from a family's grief and determination. In April of 2020, Army soldier Vanessa Guillen went missing while stationed at one of the largest military installations.
You hear that little music in the background that goes, "Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious."
Right.
Knew about it or was there. He's as guilty as the person who committed it.
Chilling details in the arrest of a suspected serial killer caught before he could strike again.
Him, they dropped the ball, man. Like they said, he went AWOL, and that he was a deserter, and nobody went to look for him.
Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder.
Like I said, we're going back. We were asked last time to kind of talk about the food, the grub truck video, and kind of give our perspective of it. The press release from the police department, it indicated that they're still trying to put pieces together from that night. Does that worry you at any point or at any bit that they're still trying to put those pieces together?
It's been over 5 weeks since little Kaylee Anthony vanished. Her mother, Casey, has been arrested for lying to police. She's being held without bail.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to The Drunken Turkey Show, your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm your host, Daniel Jane. Alongside with me, as always, Jaime G and Big Blue. Jaime, we'll start off with you. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Doing a lot better.
So I heard.
A lot better. We'll leave it at that. I'm doing a lot better. Big Blue, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Just enjoying the night.
Are you working tonight, bro?
I just got called in like an hour ago, so yeah.
Ooh, that's horrible, man. That's horrible. But you know what? Somebody got to work the polls. So there's been we're going to be kind of switching off the Kohlberger case tonight and talking about something that's not necessarily relatively new, but some new details are emerging or there's a new step in the case, so to speak. And that involves Stephen Smith, who was a young man who passed away in 2019 under suspicious circumstances. It was ruled at the time to have been a motor vehicle accident. However, there's some things about the scene that don't make it seem like that is the case. The Murdaugh name came up a lot during the investigation of this. Those may remember Murdaugh as being the Alex Murdaugh, who was recently convicted of the double homicide of his son and wife to 2 life sentences. His surviving son, Buster Murdaugh, finds himself in a little bit of controversy here recently, as he was a classmate of Stephen Smith, the deceased, and there was some rumors that were spreading wild that they had some sort of relationship. First and foremost, before we get into the case and stuff, Jaime and Blue, in 2015. I'm sorry, Jaime, are you familiar with this case?
Yeah, I was reading up on it when I first heard about it. I read up and I went through the timeline that was not, and I believe someone was mentioned for the Murdaugh.
Yeah. Buster Murdaugh has been a guy that a lot of people were kind of looking at. Big Blue, were you familiar with this case, or is this something that you also heard about just due to the recent, case proceedings that involved Alex Murdaugh?
Yeah, this is something new to me because of the Alex Murdaugh case. I haven't heard about it before.
Got you. And so, before we get into everything, I think it's probably only fair and only smart for us to kind of start at the beginning. Let's break down this case. Let's figure out what it is exactly that occurred that night, and then we'll move forward from there. And so majority of the information that I got came from a couple of different sources, whether it's Fox News and WIS-TV, 10, CBS, and Fitz News as well. Yeah. And they did a fantastic job putting a timeline together, and so that we can, try to figure this out ourselves or get a better understanding of what's going on. And so let's start off with what occurred. So at 3:57 a.m. on July 8, 2015, a man called 911 to report seeing a white male lying in the middle of Sandy Run Road. And so let's take a kind of a little quick peek of where that is. So this is the general area. This is in South Carolina. This is where the body was found. His car was found about 3 miles away. And this is where the Murdaugh residence is. So it's all kind of close together. Let's put this down in here. Okay, so this is the general area. So and I'm going to kind of just go roll through the timeline here. Officers arrived on scene, although there are some conflicting times of when they arrived, but approximately 4:07 a.m., so about 10 minutes later, there was some suspicion to the scene. For instance, the body was located in the center of the roadway. His shoes were still on and loosely tied, and they thought that there was a gunshot to the right side of his head. Yeah. That was the initial report. This is kind of a diagram of where he was located on the roadway. We have his body planted in the center of the roadway on Sandy Run Road, the cornfield, the wood line. Here is the address there relative to where the body was located. First and foremost, Big Blue, medical advisor. The local state and police ended up ruling this as a potential vehicular accident, right? Have you seen in your profession a lot of victims of pedestrian versus automobile collisions?
Yeah, but where I work, we don't get the severe ones, man. We get like the mid ones. I get the people that that get the seatbelt, or the airbag deploys and breaks their thumb or something like that, or they hit their head on the steering wheel. But when they're really severe, they go to the hospital. But I would like to see the crime scene to see like if he was dragged, because you can see that. Like I know anytime we get guys that fall off motorcycles, man, they're all tore up and being dragged from the bikes. So
Right.
Let's see how that looks.
Well, apparently he was just in the center of the road. There was no skid marks. There was none of those things. His shoes were still on his feet, which were loosely tied, which here are a picture of his actual shoes. They were still on his feet, and this is in the manner of which they were found. Typically when somebody's hit with with extreme velocity, they'll get knocked out of their shoes. It was described as a hole on the right side of his face, about 7.5 inches long. In fact, his mom, and I feel, our prayers and thoughts and prayers go out to the family and the victims, but, his mom had a open casket for the funeral and described it so that, that she wanted that way so that people can see what they did to her son.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, getting hit by a car, he would have been dragged. His shoes would have probably definitely fallen off if they were that loosely tied, and
right.
And to have something that small, that diameter, seems more like a bat or something.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking. What do you think, Jaime?
Well, first of all, the injuries was what side of his head?
It was to the right side of his head.
Okay. I don't know if anything, it looks like he was dropped off there.
I would agree with that. I would agree that the evidence leads me to believe that there was no paint transfer on his body. There was a couple of flakes of blue transfer paint, but they couldn't tell if it was from an automobile or maybe perhaps an object. They couldn't get any paint coat on there.
Yeah.
And I think he had some minor cuts and bruises. But let's just play devil's advocate. If he was walking down the street, right?
Yeah.
You would assume that, if he was following the laws, which they also did a toxology and a drunk report where he came back zeros, was not under the influence, right? Yeah. So you would assume that he'd be walking on the left side of the road, walking against traffic that would have his right side of his body, towards the direction of traffic coming on. I could understand a little bit more, if they found him off the side of the road somewhere on the left side that, based on what they're saying, it is believed or it has been said that it was caused by a truck mirror.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't find any glass. There wasn't no debris from any vehicles. Mm-hmm. If you describe the injury that he had occurred to his face in the manner that was described, you would assume that there would be some sort of debris. What do you guys think? What do you think, Hyman?
If the injuries, right, that he sustained, looks like a bat, it'll probably be a aluminum bat with some kind of, how they paint the logo on there. Uh-huh. That's probably where the paint chips will come from.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, if he was walking, either if I was in this position, I would have been walking on that shoulder against traffic.
I mean, I would walk against traffic so that you can see upcoming vehicles.
Yeah.
So that nothing surprises you.
Exactly.
The fact that they said that he was, even if he was walking in the center of the street, that doesn't make any sense. Mm-mm. You know what I'm saying? Based on the injury that he had to his face, that would have knocked him off his feet and well off of the street. Don't you believe that?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the officers that arrived on scene initially did not believe that this was a vehicular accident. They thought that it was a homicide. In fact, they thought it was a gunshot.
Yeah.
Right. And so they sent this off to the coroner, and the coroner came back saying that there wasn't any bullet fragments or things like that. So they didn't believe that it was a gunshot wound. They did a GSR on it, and I couldn't find any findings that they found any gunshot residue to his head, but I didn't find anything that said that there wasn't either. I couldn't find the findings of that. Mm-hmm. But the coroner or the autopsy pathologist stated that she thought it was a vehicular accident. The police said that they didn't, they challenged it, stated that they didn't think so. Right. Yeah. That based on what they saw at the scene, that it was something more nefarious, right? Maybe something that was staged. And so I have it here. This is this is from the autopsy. Talon, who is part of SLED, who attended the autopsy, stated that it was determined that the wound in the victim's head was not caused by a fire projectile. The pathologist stated that it appeared the victim was struck by a vehicle. Talon contacted Singleton to tell him SCHP would need to be contacted to investigate. They collected the gunshot residue kit from MUSC. Cause of death, blunt head trauma due to motor vehicle crash. It was a 7.25-inch laceration to the right side of Stephen's forehead, along with bruises to both sides of his forehead. Right side of his skull had multiple fractures, bruising, and contusions. His right eyebrow was cut. Right shoulder was dislocated. He had small cuts on the inside of his arm, and he had cuts and bruises to his right hand. He had cuts on his right arm, including a 6-inch irregular cut to the side of his right arm. He had cuts to his right fingers. He had 12 3-inch aggregate of irregular angulate abrasions on right arm and blood in his airways. Big Blue, when somebody has blood in the airways, what does that mean?
That means that when it looks like he probably did get hit by a car, but he wasn't dragged; he was just clipped. And to me, to get hit like that, it'd be either like a dump truck with those big mirrors on the side, or an older truck with those big long mirrors. You know, the ones that go like big old ears on them.
Mm-hmm.
But he also, with the injuries that they're describing, he got clipped on the shoulder, so he got hit. To me, it was he got hit and he started bleeding internally, and he suffocated on his blood.
So
What?
So he was alive after he was hit.
That's what it sounds like. So because he said his blood in his lungs, so that means he would have breathed it in.
You think could have been if he did get hit by a vehicle? You think it would have been like a dually truck with those bigger mirrors and you know how they have those big fenders in the back?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have 2 tires. They have 4 tires in the back. He could have, hit that and then hit the back fender.
Well, I think that if it caused the damage to his skull as described, that there would have been evidence of a vehicle. I don't think that mirror would have survived that collision.
No, definitely not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the part that concerns me. And then the second part is, all right, so it's described as a whole that they thought was a gunshot, right? Shouldn't there be like an obvious point of impact somewhere on the floor that you can see where, all right, this is where he was impacted. You can see the blood splatter go this direction.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? I don't see any of that in here.
Exactly. Yeah, the evidence that they have doesn't make sense for the injuries he sustained.
Right. I mean, you're right. I mean, the fact that his shoulder was also slightly, because I saw a couple of different reports, and one of them indicated that it was possibly slightly dislocated, right? If that ends up being, the case, it is kind of consistent with him getting hit this way, and it would dislocate. Yeah. But like, how did he not see a vehicle coming if he's facing it? Because it sounds like he's facing it.
Yeah.
Right. And where is the body parts of the vehicle? Where's the damaged vehicle? Where's the glass? Where's the mirror?
If it's a semi, I would say it sounds like more like a dump truck because the height, because they didn't hit the leg.
Could
or it could be the exhaust pipe from a semi, the stack.
Well, how tall was he?
I'm not sure how tall he was. Let me see if I can find that out.
Because that will tell us a lot if a vehicle can be that tall to impact the side of his head before, you know what I mean? Yeah. You know how tall but the thing is, there's no debris whatsoever at the scene.
Those are all metal. I mean, and those mirrors fold in.
Mm-hmm.
So they might not have a broken mirror because it would have pulled it in if it was one of those semis.
Yeah, but to cause that much damage, man, I would assume that there'd be a significant amount of damage to that vehicle. Mm-hmm. I've seen some vehicle versus people collisions, and there's significant damage. Yeah. It's a person is typically larger than a deer is. Its weight goes most of the time, or about the same. As a large deer. And the damage that the deer's body would leave on a vehicle. It seems kind of rough. Now, let's continue and let's also figure out what else is going on. What are you going to say, Big Lou?
I said it like he didn't cross, so he got hit pretty hard, and he must have died, not instantly, but a few seconds afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's one thing that kind of leads me to believe that we could be looking at one of them, maybe not directly at the Murdaughs yet. At this point, there's nothing that says that at the point of this program, but we'll get there. But at this point, if this was something that was staged to look like a hit and run, it very much so does seem like somebody who is not familiar with what occurs when a body gets hit by a vehicle. They left the shoes on. I believe his phone was in his pocket. They put him in the center of the roadway. Instead, those type of things are common or consistent with somebody staging something that's not familiar. And I think at the time, Buster was like 19 years old, so he would not be familiar with it at that point. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so,
you think he was put there on purpose, so maybe in the middle of the road, that way maybe he could have been hit by a car eventually.
Yeah, that's possible too. That's possible. It's dark. They put him out there. Maybe perhaps they're hoping somebody else, runs into him, and then that would be a person that they would be, looking at.
Yeah.
Looking at this timeline, they sent back Officer Roswell to go check the scene, and he put out there he could not find any debris at all on the scene of any type of thing that would look like that there was a vehicle involved in it. And so the next day, SC, South Carolina Highway Patrol, they go back out there and they don't find anything again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This says here that they meet at the funeral home and they take photos of the body, and they recover Smith's clothes. They talk to Burke, who's the pathologist, I believe, about the findings. Moore describes Smith as there were no visible injuries to the deceased other than his head wound and a small amount of road rash on both arms. So
it seems like he was hit in the head with something, and he kind of like moved out, pushed out of a car in a slow.
I was gonna say that. Do you think maybe he was pushed out?
Yeah, because you can't dislocate your shoulder just for being pushed out, right?
Right. Right. Like if they threw him out of the back of a moving vehicle. Mm-hmm. But the thing that bothers me is where's the spot of impact?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, even if they pushed him out and he landed head first at 45 miles an hour or whatever the speed they could have been going, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a spot where the impact happens.
The impact spot, the beginning rate of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here's where things get a little bit iffy on it, right? So they find his car 3 miles away. All right. This is where they found his body there. They found the car 3 miles away in this area. I think it was somewhere around right here, right? Now, the car itself is it's off to the side of the road, and the gas cap is removed and hanging off the side. That tells me, like, unless there's some kind of international sign that I'm not familiar with, where you take the gas cap off to show law enforcement that the reason why you're pulled off the side of the road is because you feel like you ran out of gas and you went to go get gas. I've never seen that happen before, where somebody does that. To me, that felt staged. What do you guys think about that? The fact that they found the car with the gas cap hanging off, just kind of hanging there. And you guys are both muted. I don't know if you guys were aware of that. But what do you think? Do you think, Blue, that that's a act of staging?
I mean, I think some people might do that and say that they're out of gas. I've seen people like leave the door open, but I don't know. It seemed kind of weird because he didn't even have a gas can in his hand, right?
No,
and they didn't find one. They didn't find one.
It sure looks like it was staged. I mean, they even said that the car ran, right? It would run. Like it would turn over, but like it would turn on, right? At least.
No, it wouldn't turn on. It wouldn't turn on.
It wouldn't turn over, but you could still put it in like auxiliary or whatever, right? Like the lights
It
would go
didn't
on.
say it. Yeah, it didn't say that. It didn't say that if it was dead or not. But if my thought initially when I first heard that is that maybe somebody parked it there and then took the gas out to make it seem like it was
Other gas.
right. Exactly. So to me, that's what I was thinking when I first saw it. In fact, I'm gonna pull up a picture of it so we
I
can.
mean, if the scene itself, the crime scene, looks staged, I'm sure they'll go back and stage something else.
Yeah, because I mean that's initially what I thought, is that somebody parked it here, puffed some gas out of it, so that it appeared that it was out of gas, left it there, went and dumped his body 3 miles away, make it appear that he was going to try to find some help. And so, let's continue. Go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
No, I'm good.
All right. So, they were presumed time of death was at 3 a.m. Pending investigation as far as the manner of death. Cause of death was blunt force trauma, probably pedestrian in a motor vehicle accident, possibly struck by a side mirror. So a man who described himself as Stephen's boyfriend, and the family disputes this, comes forward and is interviewed by the law enforcement. The man says Stephen was harassed in his town and said people screwed with Stephen's car battery. And that he says he offers to give the officers his phone and take a lie detector test. I'm telling you, man to man, I didn't kill him. The man says he's done a lot of drugs and had brain injuries. He said that Stephen was being harassed on the night of his death at Snyder's Crossroad on the way to Walterboro, South Carolina. He said that Stephen was harassed by rednecks in a big truck with big mud tires, right? And so this is very shortly after the incident. I'm not completely aware or know if the circumstances surrounding the accident are revealed. That, for instance, they feel that it could have been done by a side mirror. He may be putting these pieces together based on information that he heard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's what this guy comes forward. Now, one thing that kind of stood out to me about that was that Alex Murdaugh was not, opposed of talking to people and going up to them and to give people, have people give him a certain story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Also, his wallet. That's right. The wallet was found in the car. Stephen Smith's wallet was found in his car. Big Blue, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Well, it does sound a little weird how if he ran out of gas, either he was walking 3 miles home to go get a can and come back, but why would you leave your wallet and your phone? Supposedly his phone was there too.
Right.
I was like, that's pretty suspicious to me, because you would at least need your wallet in case you get home and there's not enough gas in the can to go get some gas at the gas station. So I don't know. It sounds a little suspicious to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it definitely is. It's weird that he would have left his phone, but then again, he may have gotten worried that he's out of gas, took off, didn't think about anything. But yeah, I found it highly suspicious. And so, I thought that maybe perhaps somebody's feeding something. Now, during this time, Alex Murdaugh's brother contacts the family, right? And says that they'll represent them for something, right? Did y'all hear that? Or did y'all see that?
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm trying to see where I'm at. I'm kind of getting lost on all this.
I wonder if the Murdaughs had a truck that was pretty high, like a farm truck.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. They had a lot of vehicles, a lot of things. I wouldn't be surprised. You know what? Before we get into the brother there, this says here, family members said that Stephen had recently started acting secretive, started coming home late. Stephen's relatives didn't believe the person who said they were dating Stephen and said that they were skeptical of him. Stephen's relative tells him that she officially left the house for the first time since Stephen's death. Hold on, let me see. All right, so and went to the store. A bunch of people kept coming up to her and saying, "Did you know that the Murdaugh boys are behind it?" Saying Buster Murdaugh is the one who went to school did it, and some of his friends. Stephen's family member didn't seem to believe this at the time. I'm just sitting here like, why? It makes no sense. She said he's never done or said anything bad about Stephen. He's never been around Stephen. When people asked who told her, she said Stephen's friend, another kid. She named a couple of people. Roswell did make a note of the Murdaugh tip in his written notes. So shortly after that conversation, and that was with one of, it just says a member of Smith's family at the DMV. All right. So after that, they contact Sandy Smith, which is the mother of the deceased Stephen Smith. And Sandy says that she is skeptical of the man claiming to be Stephen's boyfriend. She tells police Stephen was going to school in Orangeburg and hung out at Bobcat Landing a lot recently. She said that Stephen had been recently cutting school, which was unusual for him. Mm-hmm. Sandy says that Stephen was smart and with a study person who was typically serious about school. Sandy mentions that a man at Bilo was giving Stephen trouble, but they became friends. Sandy told Duncan that she had heard rumors about the Murdaugh boys and someone had to do with Stephen's death. The rumor was going around Hampton that everybody keeps coming up to me saying it was the Murdaugh boys. Duncan responds, the Murdaugh boys. She said, yes, whoever they are. Duncan didn't ask any follow-up questions and never mentioned the rumor in his notes. So people are coming up and rumors are starting to fly through locals in the area that the Murdaugh boys had something to do with this.
Yeah. I also saw that. I heard. Well, I didn't hear, but I read that there was rumors that it was him and a couple of guys that were coming from a baseball game, and started harassing him. Those are just rumors. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But it kind of makes a little bit of sense, no? Like, because it does seem like the injuries might be sustained from a baseball bat.
Yeah, man. It sounds like it, and you know. The part that sticks out to me was the fact that they confused his injuries with a gunshot wound.
Yeah,
like that has to be some severe blunt force trauma. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. At this point, I don't know, because you're saying he was being harassed, right? Over verbally, in physically too, also.
Well, the guy claiming to have been his boyfriend at the time has come forward and stated that he told him that he was being harassed by rednecks at a local bar. My thing is, like, how was he aware that he was getting harassed that night there? Unless he told him, and there should the police have Stephen Smith's phone, so I believe they should have some type of record of that, don't you think?
Yeah,
they would have either a call or text messages.
Yeah, but if that was the case, if that's true, then at this point it would be just like a hate crime, right?
Right.
Because right. I know he was I believe he was gay, right?
Yes. Yeah, he was.
So I mean, like, you think that would have been a factor why he was being harassed?
Oh, yeah, definitely, especially 2015, things were still changing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And this is in South Carolina, the South. It may not be, in a rural area too. It's probably not as accepted as, in other places, larger places with more diversity and things like that. Definitely so. So just kind of run through everything real quick. Evidence from the scene was that Smith was found at just before 4 a.m. in the middle of the road on Sandy Run Road. No tire marks, no debris from a vehicle found on the scene after several searches. Stephen's loosely tied shoes were on his feet when he was found in the middle of the road. His car was found 3 miles away with the gas cap off. Chain of custody apparently was broken when Stephen's clothes were left unattended at the funeral home. So somebody may have gotten in touch with those things.
Yeah.
Stephen's head was bruised and mishappened by a blunt force. His shoulder was partially dislocated, no other major injuries. Dispute about the hit and run theory. Investigators on the scene July 8th went back and forth between gunshot homicide and hit and run accident. South Carolina Highway Patrol officers were told it wasn't a vehicular accident and they didn't have to be at the autopsy. At the autopsy, MUCS pathologist Dr. Aaron Priestnell ruled that Stephen was killed by a hit and run crash. 2 SCHP investigators spoke with personnel, described the hostile experiences with the pathologist, and couldn't get a direct answer as to why she ruled Stephen's death as a vehicular accident. So not only did they go, but they also questioned him to the point where it became hostile between the pathologist and the investigators.
Yeah.
It does seem like somebody's trying to get involved.
Yep, somebody's trying to put their hand in that.
Yeah, especially since the chain of custody was messed with. Something was messed with.
Yeah. No, definitely. Just from the clothes being there, and nobody knows who had a hold of them, and nobody knows, who came in contact with them. You know what I mean? That's just that's a big red flag right there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan Rowe, for the $5 super sticker.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. So this is from the forensic science. Forensic scientist Michael Moskow of SLED regarding trace evidence and results. They took one black Nike short sleeve shirt, no automotive paint found. One pair of khaki Union Bay cargo shorts, no automotive paint found. Cutting from item 3, no paint found. One pair of blue Airspeed footwear shoes, no automotive paint found. Debris collected from items 2 through 4. Several single-layer metallic blue paint chips were found. Due to the condition and sample, no make, model, and year information was able to be obtained. So metallic blue paint chips. Could that be like one of those metallic blue baseball bats?
It can be.
If there's composite ones that do break. There's composite bats that do break. I'm sure they'll lead the same kind of injuries as an aluminum bat also.
Right. And as far as the toxology report, I believe it came back clear. There was nothing there. These paint chips are suitable for a comparison should a standard become available, the note says. So it's enough to compare if they find something to compare it to, but not enough to determine if it's what kind of paint coat it is, if it's automobile or not.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to go through some of this and I'll let you guys see this timeline that I'm reading through.
So if it's not a bat, they should be looking for a blue dump truck with a new mirror on the probably left side.
Mm-hmm.
Or a blue semi, but I mean, you'd think they did it by accident and they weren't drinking, they would have stopped. But, it's one of those things where a lot of people drink and they just hit somebody and go.
I just have a problem with, if you got hit by a mirror, like the possibility of getting run over with the back tires are really, really high, aren't they?
They're pretty high, yeah.
I don't know if they found any injuries to his legs or, but from what I heard is from here, that what we heard is like it's all up in the head injuries, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. If it is a semi, it's gonna be like you said, blue metallic, right? Yeah. But even that, like, there's no. If that was the case, there would have had to be some kind of debris.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. So,
like you said too, like if he got hit right then and there would have been blood splatter, right?
Right.
Like the direction he got hit, right? But there wasn't, right? I think there was just pulls, right?
Yeah. It's strange, man. There's nothing there. Like we said, there's no impact spot where we would normally want, you would want to see that to determine, where this actually had occurred. You have a resting spot where the body was found, but unless you're led to believe that the he was hit in that spot and fell directly down, there should be still some sort of like spray out, blood splatter going out from the initial contact. So it's suspicious. And so on August 4th, Duncan, who's one of the sled officer, one of the South Carolina Highway Patrol officers, picks up the iPhone, notes that there is no chain of custody with the phone.
Shit, man.
Dude. This sounds like cover up all the way through and through.
No wonder they reopened this.
Yeah, it says here, note, this is odd because another SLED report says that Duncan signed a chain of custody form from August 4th and transferred the phone with Jay Conley of the SCHP on I-95 on August 5th. So SCHP meets with Sandy Smith and Stevens' relatives in Orangeburg, unable to unlock the phone. Duncan contacts one of Stevens' friends. She says she talked to him about 7 or 8 p.m. the night he passed, just talking about school. He didn't say where he was or what he was doing. He was very likable, to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge did anyone not like him. I heard it was a hit and run and that it wasn't. She didn't hear any other rumors as to what had happened. So the next day, Duncan meets with Lance Corporal Conley and is given the iPad. Duncan interviews Colonel David Roswell, put up a billboard on Sandy Road asking for tips in Stephen Smith's case. Really haven't found anything that would indicate to us that it's vehicle involved, Roswell said. So they're still unsure about. It's not even a vehicle involved accident at this point. Duncan notes that he returned the iPad to Stephen's sister. Now this is where people start throwing in Buster's name, right?
Yeah.
So there's been some interviews here and names have been redacted or changed. So this one says Duncan calls Stephen's friend, who we will call Brittany. Duncan says Stephen's relative called him to say that she saw Brittany at church and Brittany had informed about Stephen's death, that Duncan asked her to email him this information. Brittany tells him that another friend of mine had texted her and asked where were Buster and Stephen together. She told the friend, no, not that I knew of why. He responded that he had heard it. She asked if a friend from whom he said he didn't know, just that he had heard it. Duncan responds, okay, so he didn't have anything to base that upon except for more or less a rumor. Is that correct? Duncan asked Brittany whether she had ever heard of Stephen and Buster being together before this. She said she had not. Duncan asked to make sure that this was the first she had heard of the rumor, and Brittany says yes. Duncan asked Brittany whether she knew Stephen was gay, and she said, I did. Duncan asked her whether she had heard any rumors about Stephen's death that she knew wasn't true other than what we've been talking about. She said no, that the only thing that I heard, that's the only thing that I've heard. Duncan asked her if anything curious happened at his funeral afterward that stuck out to her unusual. She said not that she's aware of. She says a boy named, and we'll call him Jack, told her about the rumor. And then Duncan's notes contacted Brittany in reference to Stephen Smith's death, states a boy named Jack asked if Stephen and Buster had ever had any type of relationship. Duncan calls Jack and leaves a message. Duncan notes Jack's father called him and wants to know what's going on, says Jack will call him later. So Jack calls Duncan. Duncan tells Jack that he knows he sent the text to Brittany. Jack knows Stephen, he confirms. Duncan asked if Buster Murdaugh had any relationship with Stephen, said he had heard it. Jack said, I've heard the rumor. Do you know any information if it's true or not? Not at all. When asked if he knew anything about the Stephen's death, Jack says, no, not at all, sir. Jack said that the only rumor he had heard was in relation to Stephen's death. Editor's note, while doing a basic background search, Jack, we noticed that he was facing 2 different lawsuits from the Murdaugh law firm. Attorney Johnny Parker, a powerful, well-known firm partner, filed a 2-car accident lawsuit against Jack in late 2015, July of 2015. They were both dismissed in 2016. So somebody was telling people that Buster Murdaugh was involved with Stephen. Now, this person that is starting to spread these rumors did have a lawsuit against him from the Murdaugh law firm. How does that make you feel about this information? We'll start off with you, Jaime.
It kind of paints like almost like a kind of a revenge thing kind of thing.
Right, on this guy, right?
Yeah, on that guy itself. But it's just like, man, the Murdaugh's on and kind of everything, man.
No, I know.
So,
And go ahead.
it's like, you know what happened in the last case with the dad. You know, he was convicted of all that, of the murders and whatnot. So it's like there's a lot of people are passing away around them. You know.
Yeah, man, and in a really odd, not odd, but like in a horrific manner.
Yeah.
And so this here also says that according to a chain of custody report, investigator talk practice transferred. There was a rape kit to another person. So a rape kit was conducted.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so this is still within, short time after the incident.
Yeah.
And this is like August 17th here. Duncan calls the man who says he's Steven's boyfriend. We'll call him Mike. It goes straight to voicemail, leaves a message. Duncan calls Mike again, leaves a message. So Duncan calls Mike, goes straight to voicemail. Duncan speaks to Sandy Smith. She gives him the phone number of a person that may know some information. Duncan calls Ben, leaves a voicemail. Duncan calls a woman because Sandy Smith said she might have information about Smith's passing. Phone rings 4 times, no voicemail, never calls back.
Damn.
Steve, yeah, nobody's answering here. Steven's relative told Duncan that a man told her there was a green Jeep following Steven on the day that he passed or the day before. There is no note of Duncan ever trying to contact this man. Okay. Duncan interviews a man, this is Ben, over the phone. Sandy Smith told Duncan the previous day had information. So Ben worked at Hardee's in Hampton. He went to school with Steven but never hung out with him outside of school. He said a white man in his 30s or 40s came looking for him and Ben, called the police and told them about it. And this coworker said that he was looking for him again. He said that he knew Ben from hanging out with Steven and him before. When asked if he's heard any rumors about Steven's death, he said he had heard that he was running in the woods from somebody. He then said he thought he was running from an older guy. Maybe it was some guy he was messing with, and nobody knew Steven was going to bring him out. So this guy, Ben, who says that he had information about it, his story is that it's possibly somebody older, right?
Yeah.
So Lance Corporal Conley interviews a man who will call Joe at Hilton Head after Sandy Smith found a day pass for Hilton Head gated community with Joe's name on it. So Steven's mother finds his day pass with this guy's name. So Joe was older and recently divorced. Kind of sounds like the guy that they're talking about up forward. Mm-hmm. He met Steven online but said no money was exchanged. Joe said he doesn't do this kind of thing very often. He said they hooked up on June 28th, but it was a one-night stand. Joe said he texted him a few times after that and didn't realize he passed away until he was contacted by Sandy.
Damn.
That guy looks a little bit suspicious too. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, first, like, if it's a small, how big is that town?
It don't look very big, man.
So, like, that news will run wild in that town, right?
You would assume.
Like, it would have got to him, right? After he said he was texting the phone, even though supposedly he didn't know that he already had passed away.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
like,
he said he was still texting the phone, according to him.
Yeah, you would think he would already have found out living in a small town.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless he's just, I mean, I don't know. Depends on how much older he is, you know. He's like an old guy who is not very tech savvy, doesn't pay attention to the news. September 1, 2015, Proctor interviews a man, we'll call him Kevin, on the phone. So Kevin says he heard this past weekend that certain young men were riding down 601, saw Steven broken down on the road, passed Steven, turned around, and stuck something out the window that ended up hitting Steven. He tells Proctor, I want to help you in any way possible. He said he's heard 3 names. I don't want to say it over the phone. He said, About the names he's been told, Kevin asked to meet in person, saying he is willing to help with anything. Kevin says that he's sort of torn because he hates going by the he said, she said situation, but then that he thinks about the situation and it would make sense. He says it would be worth looking into. Proctor says that he understands Kevin's reservations about saying the name. Proctor tells him his office is out of Charleston and there's no big name in Hampton that worries me. I want you to feel at ease about this as well. Proctor says he's heard that people associated with this name have been around, kind of threatening, putting the heat on people to keep their mouths shut. Kevin says he knew this person and went to school with him, says it kind of makes all sense, but he hates being the kind of person to throw accusations out there. Kevin tells him he understands what he's saying about being in Charleston, but feels more comfortable talking to Proctor in person. They make arrangements and meet in the morning. And so the crime scene investigation summary from James B. Talon is issued. SLED mailed crime scene photos to investigator Perry Singleton of HCSO coroner. So this is Proctor meets up with Kevin. Kevin says he first heard that Stephen was shot, but then heard it was a hit and run. He recently, in the past week and a half, heard 2 or 3 other people were riding around 601, saw Stephen on the side of the road, were messing around with him, stuck something out the window. Kevin says he heard it was Buster Murdaugh, kind of out of character to who I knew. He says the person he thought this, though, said that Buster was on drugs. Kevin says, I hate to only be able to give you hearsay. I hate it because the main thing is whether that is the case or not. In this case, there is still somebody who lost a child brother, lost a family member, and that's just not right.
Hilton Head, South Carolina population. 48,000.
Yeah, that's not big. That's not big. That's not a big area. Proctor asked him, Kevin, who heard this from, he said a fellow named Jack. And well, Jack's real name, the guy that we spoke to earlier. So the guy who was getting sued from the Murdaugh family is the one who's saying this as well, right?
Yeah, he's the one
pushing this narrative.
Yeah, pushing it.
Okay, Kevin says that Jack told him that Buster, a man who we will call Trevor, tried to sell him cocaine at a party in Moselle. Kevin says that Trevor just moved to Oklahoma, which he says is weird. It's just weird to me, Kevin says. All of this, it could be very strange coincidence, but it's just weird to me. So after the incident, one of those guys that he calls Trevor moved out of state. So that's usually a sign. Trevor was bad on drugs, according to Kevin. Proctor asked Kevin whether he thinks Trevor was in the car. Kevin says it fits the mold. There's some part inside of me that says there's a possibility. He says that Kevin being in the car. Proctor asked about Trevor moving. Kevin says he found this out through Facebook. Kevin gives Proctor the rundown of where he got and heard his rumors from. Kevin says he doesn't understand why law enforcement hasn't gone straight to name of the guy who appears to be the source of the rumor. Proctor says he heard that Buster and the 3 guys were coming back from a baseball game. Kevin says Buster and whoever he was with him coming from the Murdaugh's house in Moselle on 601. Proctor asked whether Kevin knows if Buster was driving. He says, I imagine so, adding that Kevin usually was the one to drive when his friends were driving around. So he's part of their friends. Is that what I'm reading right?
He's part of the group.
Yeah, he says, I would imagine so, Kevin says, adding that Kevin usually was the one to drive with when his friends were driving around.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like this guy's trying to give some information about what had occurred, but also removing himself from the situation.
Directly?
Right. He's like, oh, I'm the one that usually drives, but I wasn't there that night, so it must have been Buster. Right. Kevin says Buster used to drive a Suburban, but would sometimes drive a black F-150 or an F-250. Kevin says he has no idea who else was in the car. All right, so Kevin sounds a little bit suspicious. You know what I'm saying? Welcome, all natural. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you and to everybody in the live chat. Guys, we got 507 of y'all in here. If y'all haven't hit the like button, please do so. If y'all haven't hit the subscribe button, we would appreciate it.
What's it called? None of y'all wearing green.
I can't, dude.
No, because of the back.
We'll disappear. Also disappeared.
I'm wearing a little bit of green right here.
Yeah.
So my shorts have green laces, so I got green.
So I'm gonna try to skip through some of this because this is kind of a lot of the same thing I just read right now.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on this, Big Blue?
Man, it's hard to tell, like, because it does sound like he was hit by something, but some of the other wounds do make it sound like he was hit by a mirror and partially the corner of a car. It could have been. To me, it's like a semi. It would have to be a semi. The right height.
I'm gonna go with hate crime, man. I'm gonna go with hate crime. I'm gonna go with he got beat.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are coming forward saying that it's Buster, right? Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. A lot of people are claiming that there was a possible relationship there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I've seen that a lot too.
I mean, it does bring up a motive. If, for instance, maybe perhaps one of Buster's family may have found out what was going on. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Something to that nature. Or pressure from his friends, or maybe even Stephen, saying that he's going to say something about the relationship. So this here says, editor's note, to be fair, police appeared to be pursuing other persons of interest as well and never named anyone as a suspect. The accusations in the interviews above were never proven. We are just simply showing the inquiries of the investigation, right? So at this point of the investigation, that's all they're doing, right? So let's. What do you got? Do y'all have any questions or comments so far up to this point?
Well, somebody says in there that it's a baseball bat. See, at first I thought it was a baseball bat for the theory, but then you know how hard the swing would have had to been to dislocate the shoulder and do that laceration and cut the hands without him being able to crawl a little bit. It would have been a hard hit, man. So it would have been something a lot heavier.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it had to have been at least a semi with those.
Where's the debris? Where's the debris, bro? Where's the glass? Where's the not only that, where is the, let's say he got hit by a semi, right? Like maybe a fender, not even a side mirror, right? Because those are pretty tall. Let's say he got hit by a fender, man. The fenders usually from a semis are made out of fiberglass. That thing would have broke and they would have left a lot of fiberglass residue under.
I'm thinking he was hit more by one of those tall mirrors in the stack. And that's all metal.
Before he would have got hit with that, he probably hit the fender, then hit the side runners, the Nerf bars, I guess you can say, the steps or whatever, and then probably the back tires.
Maybe not in dump trucks. Dump trucks don't have the big fenders in the back.
Dump trucks at 3 a.m?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It's hard to tell what's driving down there. There's a lot of farmers.
Yeah,
there's a lot of farmers, and I don't think they'll be going that fast.
Maybe. What about a tractor? What about one of those tractors that have something that are,
the combines?
Yeah, the ones that drive, they have those things that stick out to the side.
Metallic. I've never seen a metallic blue one though.
Nah, they're all green.
Yeah, that's true.
I've seen a few red. But yeah,
it's just some evidence fits it. Sometimes, and most of it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the injury that he sustained to his head. What did it say? The injury was like missing part of his.
It sounds like it. It said there was a hole. Described 7.25 inches big.
Or like, maybe does it mean like it was caved in?
No? I'm not sure, man. It sounds like they thought it was a gunshot, so I'm assuming that it was blown back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's this could be a good one.
Yeah, and there has to be a lot of force, and let's just say it was a baseball bat. right? Somebody driving down the road. Let's just say he stands up in the bed of his truck, sees somebody, and takes a swing, right? Like, wouldn't that cause some kind of, I don't know, damage to the guy's hands?
Not necessarily. No, because I when I grew up in Wisconsin, the guys used to love going and swinging at mailboxes, and your hands hurt, but they only hurt for a second.
Gotcha. I've never done that, so
But
I wouldn't know.
Also, do you know if they found any paint chips in the area of the injury?
You know, when I was reading that earlier, they didn't say the location of where the paint chips were, but it didn't say it was on any of the clothing. So I would assume that it's probably in and around the area, because it said that there was no paint chips on the shirt, shorts, shoes, socks, but that they covered like 8 pieces of paint layers, right? So yeah, I would assume that it's in and around that area.
Man. Well, I mean, to me, like Blue said, that'd be a hard hit if it was with the bat, right?
Yeah.
It's bad. Like, I mean, could it be something else, something more sharper instead of blunt, more less blunt?
You know, I'm gonna maybe perhaps, if this was a truck that had, you know how you've seen those trucks that have this, I can't think. It's not a headache rack. But like a rack on the back of the bed of the truck where you can put ladders on the top and things of that nature. Maybe perhaps if there was something that was sticking off to the side that was metal that was utilized as a tool for working out on the job site, I can see something like that. Maybe perhaps sticking out and somebody swerving in that direction, or, you know, it's 3 a.m. Somebody could easily be drunk and driving, going this way and that way. But the part that doesn't make any sense is the location of where the body was found. It's in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Middle of the road, and
minimal road rash, right?
Yeah, minimal road rash, and it's in the middle of the road, and there's no sign of anything that would make you lead to believe that it was a motor vehicle accident, other than the fact that it's not a gunshot wound. You know, and the fact that he was found in the middle of the roadway is what leads the pathologist to believe that it was a vehicular accident. But real quick, I want to say thank you, Kylie, for becoming a member. We're actually going to switch to the members only chat here in about 3 or 4 minutes. And thank you so much for your super sticker, your $4.99 D La Cow. I hope I pronounced that right. Let's see. Now, I was scrolling through this because it's a lot of the same stuff, right? A lot of people saying Buster, Buster, Buster. At the end of this, Proctor says, I'm trying to track down, and it says, you are now the 10th person I've talked to in reference to this one rumor. It had all started somewhere. If you say you heard it from Isaac, eventually you're going to get to the source. It was the Hampton yesterday, stirred up some dust. If you hear anything, number, please call. So at one point, you know, they've talked to a bunch of different people, 10 of them, that have all came forward with this similar rumor.
Yeah.
Where do you think that's coming from? Let's just say it's true, right? So I don't know if Buster did this. I think you have to remember. I think he was like 19 at the time. He's probably naive. If he did this by himself, I'd have problems believing that, especially if he did this because of a sexual relationship, that he would be talking about this. So I would tend to believe or side more with the rumor that there was 3 people in the truck.
Yeah.
What do you think, Big Blue? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would think to be doing it by yourself and swinging a bat if you're driving by, that'd be pretty tough without losing control. So I think somebody else probably was driving, or maybe.
Yeah, he was 3 miles away from his car, phone in his pocket. I don't understand if he did run out of gas or something, why he didn't call anybody either, and why that wouldn't be in you know, that information would be here. Let's see. I'm going to kind of scroll through this, see if I find anything else. Because a lot of it is just them interviewing other people.
Yeah.
And things that are just possible. So this says here, this was a tip. Duncan receives an anonymous tip. Dontero Aiken, along with another black male and a white male, Murdaugh, are the ones involved in the death. Duncan contacts Roselle and briefs him up on the tip. Duncan sends an email to 3 other SCP troopers, not Todd Proctor, about what I wanted Corporal Roswell to do. Duncan sends the information to Proctor and advises him about the information. So again, now there's another tip coming in that there was Aiken, Murdaugh, and a black male that were involved in this. So let's see. Proctor receives information from Duncan about Daryl Williams, who says his stepson, Patrick Wilson, told him that Sean Connolly struck and killed Stephen Smith. Proctor notes. All right. Williams said his stepson told him this in confidence. He said Wilson's had moved out and he did not know where he was staying. Williams said he could only tell Proctor that Wilson attended some Christian school in Ridgeland. Proctor drives to Ridgeland and goes to the Step of Faith School, but Wilson does not go there. Proctor then goes to Legacy U-Haul Baptist Church School. Wilson is a student, but not at school that day. Williams doesn't return Proctor's call seeking more information. Mr. Williams stated that the reason that he was passing this information was because Randy Murdaugh told him to call. Proctor wrote in his report. The conversation was not recorded. So apparently Randy Murdaugh told Mr. Williams to call, and this is Daryl Williams, who I don't know who he is, but
isn't it weird that he's questioning people over the phone too?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you want them to come in and then they record everything they're saying or whatever?
Well, I think that he's having problems getting a hold of some people and people wanting to come in and talk.
He does?
Well, I think the problem is that at the time, this is before Paul Murdaugh and his mom, Maggie Murdaugh, passed. This is before, all of what Alex Murdaugh was doing comes to light. And these guys were in charge, right, of this area. And so the reason I assume that this is going on like this is because they're afraid to come forward to him. Let's see. Mr. Williams stated the reason he was passing the information was because Randy Murdaugh told him to call. Randy Murdaugh is brother of Alex Murdaugh, right?
Yeah.
And so this isn't uncommon for the Murdaughs. It seems like a little bit of a habit for them to be getting involved in a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? In cases in this manner by telling people. Remember with the boating accident, they had went out there and they told the folks that were involved in that boating accident to not say anything, to try to persuade them to not reveal that Paul was operating the vehicle. And they were even trying to talk Connor into taking the fall for operating that vehicle. So I don't see these folks coming up, I don't see it. How can I put it? I don't put it past them coming up to people and try to put the blame on others.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Now, one thing that happens that we haven't gotten to yet, and it's going to come up, but found out that Murdaughs were highly involved in this case. They were mentioned over 40 times for no reason. They had no reason to be involved. And it appears that they have a history of trying to protect, themselves at any means possible, right? So let's go through this a little bit more. Let's see. All right, so I haven't gone through all of this part. So this is December 21st, 2015. Duncan interviews Nick Ginn, and we have gone to members only on the live chat, guys. This is our Friday night. We do a members only live chat for the last 30 minutes or so of the program. So we encourage you to become a member. Duncan interviews Nick Ginn of the Hampton Police Department in reference to a tip that came from an email from Sergeant Burns. Duncan says he's calling Ginn at a phone number which Duncan says is the Hampton Police Department. And this says, when Fitz News looked up the phone number written in the report, it stated recording that the number is for a local law firm, not the Murdaugh law firm. The Hampton Police Department is a completely different phone number. When Ginn picks up the phone, he says Sergeant Ginn, as if he's picking up the phone of his own office. When Duncan asks Ginn whether he has time to talk about the Hampton Coke case, Ginn tells him he's at somebody else's desk and needs to put him on hold to get a piece of paper in case he needs to take notes. Ginn returns after some delay. Some of our phones have line 1, some don't. Daryl is Ginn's stepdad. Daryl is Ginn's stepdad, I'm sorry. What was told to Ginn from Daryl, Patrick Wilson said Sean Connolly was drunk and hit something. When he came back the next day, he saw cops and learned through the media somebody had been killed. He said Sean called Patrick crying. Sean called Patrick crying, saying that that's what happened. Patrick cried as he told his stepfather the story and walked outside and threw up. Ginn said that they wondered if Patrick was with him. Duncan, did he describe what had happened? Ginn, supposedly it was the mirror. I sent Nick the pictures of the truck he was driving that night. I wanted to say I sent everything to Mitch Altman, him and my brother, and me and my good friends, and I didn't know who to contact. Mitch said he would get information to the right person. Daryl told Ginn he was concerned and somebody lost a son. Man, this kind of sounds like somebody came forward, don't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sounds like.
What kind of truck? Where's the pictures?
Yeah, Duncan says they got this tip on December 9th, and we got a couple of people going out looking for Patrick. Duncan asks him whether he had heard about this incident before. Again, says that some rumors around town, but as far as anything that I could see would have had any kind of possible validity to this. Duncan, how do you feel about Patrick? Again, says he thinks a good-hearted person, but he's shady. Patrick has a criminal record. Ginn says, I think he was charged with attempted murder, but I'm not exactly sure what the circumstances was behind that. But I think it was one of those things they charge for a higher charge to work their way down, right? According to Investigation 5, never contacted Patrick Wilson or Sean Connolly. That's shady.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. And I want to say thank you to Leticia Guerra for the $5 super sticker.
We appreciate you. That goes to the to our fund. We're going to be trying to get out to a couple of different places as courts start to come in. We have 2 that we're eyeing. We're going to be trying to make our way out to Moscow, Idaho, to be present for the Brian Kohberger case, and then we're also looking at the Richard Allen case. So,
yeah.
Let's see. Patrick Wilson case. Wilson was charged with first-degree assault and battery and attempted murder on April 17, 2015. According to the arrest warrants in the case, Wilson got into an argument with a man and fired a shot at the man's car who had 2 passengers inside. This incident happened on Prince William Road in Brunson, South Carolina. All victims were afraid for their lives, the arrest warrant says. Sean Connolly, the person who Wilson claimed hit Stephen with his truck, was in the car with Wilson when the shooting occurred. According to this witness statement, Connolly told police that Patrick Wilson grabbed his gun and shot at the sign after he argued with a man. Hampton grand jury indicted Wilson on attempted murder, assault, and battery in August 2015. While Wilson was out on bond, the family he alleged shot at filed several harassment complaints about Wilson. A close friend of the Murdaugh family represented Patrick Wilson in the case. Okay, so this is where the Murdaugh family comes into play. Close friend of the Murdaugh family represented Patrick Wilson in the case. In 2018, Fleming represented Gloria Statterfield's family in a wrongful death settlement against Alex Murdaugh. Hold on. Oh, so it's the same person that represented Gloria Statterfield. So we know how that ended. That's the lady that was the cleaning lady that was helping out. That they ended up, the Murdaughs ended up suing themselves or something like that and keeping all this money. I don't know. Yeah. And so in February 2018, Wilson indictment was non-prost, which means the 14th Circuit Solicitor Office, where Alex Murdaugh worked, was a part-time solicitor, decided to not prosecute the charges. Word drop. All right. So what do y'all think about that? Right? And thank you so much, Gail, for your $5.50 super sticker. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know, man. This is just weird.
Man, it's crazy, man.
Well, first of all,
it's all kind of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that guy said that he clipped something. I want to see what kind of car he was driving.
Yeah.
What color it was.
Yeah.
He said it was a truck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see those pictures.
I do too, man.
If that was the case, then we wouldn't be here talking about this case itself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So apparently, from what I believe, it's like that wasn't the truck. Like it wasn't the same color or anything, but it had no damage, maybe.
Right. It's confusing. I think the reason why that tip started, or all that stuff started brewing, it all started with Randolph Murdaugh calling and telling. It started off with Randolph Murdaugh calling and telling him to call about his stepson. You know, I don't know, man. And then they also represented him and got some charges dropped, things like that.
Yeah.
Things are just being very, very shady here. Very shady. Go ahead.
It's just like, with such a small town, these people had a lot of power over it.
Yeah.
So
they definitely did.
So would you think that maybe they pointed the direction over here? That way they'd be like, okay, he don't know him. It was an accident and he wasn't drunk or on drugs. Instead of pointing it the other way and investigating the Murdaughs.
Yeah. It's weird, man. It definitely is. I'm just gonna scroll through. All right, this is not that much. We can read all this, and then we'll go forward from there. Let's see. Let me pull this up. All right. So December 29th, videotape chain of custody and disposal of video related to this case was taken by Trooper G.N. Hoffman was disposed of. Why would SCHP destroy any evidence related in this case in December 2015 when the case was obviously still running out of leads and nowhere close to being solved? Why would they destroy video?
They're clearing up something.
Yeah.
An open case, an open investigation.
Man, that's
something very, very shady, man. Because normally doesn't the evidence get locked up, and it could be locked up for years.
Exactly. What is this? The moon landing? What is this?
Right. Jeez. So this says here, Proctor gets a search warrant for Cellco Partnership Verizon Wireless Custodian of Records. Description of property sought. Target phone to be identified as having the number of 843650. The rest is redacted. Further known as target phone, any incoming and outgoing historical all cell data, including cell sites, text messages, including content, identity, cell information, subscriber and phone toll information to include but not limited to target number, main number, account status, type of phone, subscriber name, published status, service address, billing address, other numbers, yada, yada, yada. Reason for affiance believe the property sought in the subject premises, the owner of the above described cell phone was fatally wounded in an incident on or about July 8, 2015 on Sandy Run Road within the county of Hampton, South Carolina. The use of the phone before the incident are pertinent to the ongoing investigation. The individual was found deceased in the middle of the roadway with severe head trauma. The investigation has led to believe the individual not being struck by a vehicle and possible foul play. The information on the phone will be helped to determine the victim had contact prior to the events that led to his death. The last mention of Stephen's phone in the case file. So that's the last that they did. They never released what the findings were of that.
Wow.
All right. So on June 13, 2016, so this is almost a year later, at 2:04 p.m., SCHP, J.D. James and Hoffman of SCHP interview Toronto Atkin in Vernal, South Carolina. Note, other media have already reported Atkin's name, so we didn't change it. And this is a guy that was brought up earlier, right? Audio. James mistakenly tells Duranto that Stephen was killed on Saturday night. Sunday morning, Stephen was killed on a Wednesday. James asks Duranto how Stephen got killed, and Duranto misunderstands him and answers social media pretty much. Duranto tells him that he found out Stephen passed on Facebook because somebody wrote R.I.P. Stephen. Then he saw a picture and said, "Oh, that kid." James asked whether the post said how he passed. Duranto said he was hit by a car, something like that. James responded he didn't get hit by a car. Duranto says he didn't. James says someone murdered him. Duranto asks for what? James says that's what I'm saying. For what? Duranto says that's crazy. James says, why would somebody do that to him? Duranto says, I have no idea. Duranto tells James that he never really talked to Stephen and that Stephen was their trainer on football team. And he said that Stephen barely talked. Duranto says he heard about Stephen's death the Friday after it happened. James says, this happened on a weekend. Duranto says, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Editor's note, Stephen was killed on a Wednesday, almost a year before this interview. James asked Aiken multiple times what he was doing that weekend when Stephen's passing wasn't that weekend. James asked Aiken if he knows any Murdaughs. He said that he went to school with a girl with the last name, but knew of a boy that graduated with Stephen. James, what rumors have you heard around town? Aiken said that he minds his own business and that he just heard that Stephen was hit by a car. James asked Aiken if James asks about Aiken's Hyundai Genesis and how he financed it. James asked Aiken if he had an attorney. He said no. This by no means is a closed investigation. James said, so if something comes up in your future, we have leads to go on. We discovered new information about the case. You didn't do it. If you didn't do it, if you were tied in with it and you didn't cooperate with us, I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. I'm saying this is pretty bad. This is the last time that South Carolina Highway Patrol interviewed anyone in the Stephen Smith's death, according to the case file. So it sounds like, to me, based on what I'm reading there, somebody bought this young man a Hyundai Genesis, and they believe that it was purchased for him to not say anything.
Like
what
hush,
do you guys think?
Like a hush hush?
Yep, that's what I'm thinking.
The Genesis weren't cheap either, man. They were like 24 to 32,000. So
I was gonna get one, but then I realized when I went to test drive one that I didn't fit in it.
Yeah. Those things are tiny, man.
Yeah, they're pretty compact now.
Yeah, they had a pretty good little motor with a 2.0 turbo, like the Tibron, the Hyundai Tibron.
Kind of. There was a turbocharged version of it, but yeah, those were expensive cars too, not cheap. And so they asked how he financed it, how he got it. That leads me to believe that they think that somebody paid him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sandy Smith writes a letter to the FBI and other powerful leaders begging for help in the investigation. My family is desperate for your need of help, she wrote. My 19-year-old son, Stephen Nicholas Smith, was murdered on July 8, 2015 in Hampton County, South Carolina. It has been apparent from the first week of this investigation that authorities are covering up critical evidence, and we no longer know who to trust. She said that authorities flip-flop between theories when they told the Smiths of the news of Stephen's death on July 8, 2015. Stephen's father, my ex-husband, who is now deceased, and I were first told that our son was shot to death after running out of gas in the early morning hours and exiting his vehicle, she wrote. Later that day, we were told it was a hit and run. Finally, investigators determined that he was beaten to death. Stephen's father died suddenly on October 15, in October of 2015. In the letter, Sandy describes her son's injuries in detail. He was attacked so violently that the entire side of his face was rebuilt with putty for his funeral, she wrote.
Wow.
It sounds horrific. In the letters, Sandy said that she was getting mixed messages from authorities in immediate aftermath of Stephen's passing. Hampton investigators asked at the time to continue to publicly say it was a hit and run. She wrote, they claimed they didn't want the killer to know they were looking for him. They have been no named suspects. Sandy said that she told South Carolina Highway Patrol investigators about the important leads, but nothing came of it. In the letter, Sandy pointed out several discrepancies in the 911 log, which included Michael Bridges of the Hampton County Sheriff's Office arrived on scene within 1 minute of the 911 dispatch. The second officer, Jason Eubanks, arrived within 2 minutes. This is suspicious to me because the area where my son was placed is extremely rural, Sandy wrote. In the letter, Sandy said the investigators have failed to access Stephen's phone, a piece of evidence that would likely shed light on a lot of the rumors of the investigation. So right there, just right there on its own, that is kind of weird. Rural area, somebody showing up one minute and then an officer shows. Typically in these rural areas, officers are designated certain areas, right, to cover. And so usually you'll have like a county, and let's just say you have 5 officers working that night. You'll probably have the county divided up into 3 areas, and you'll have, like, let's just say we'll call those areas 1, 2, and 3, right? You'll have 1 officer in area 1, 2, and 3, and then you usually have maybe 2 supervisors roving around, depending on the size of the department. I've seen smaller departments where they've only had 2 officers working a large area in one night, and so usually they're not in the same spot, given the fact that their duty is to cover a large area, right?
Yeah.
So that is pretty suspicious. The fact that they have been unable to get into the phone is another thing that's suspicious. You have the damage or the destruction of evidence as well. Like, you have what they believe is at least some evidence for them to ask someone where they financed their car from, to suspect that, what's the word I'm looking for? That vehicle may have been purchased in another way, right? So let's see. Let's continue. At the beginning of the investigation, officers told us they would not have access to Stephen's text messages for approximately a year, she wrote. They claimed they would have to send the phone to Apple to override the security features. We found out months later the phone had never been sent to Apple. According to investigation on file, SCHP last mentioned the phone in January 2016 when Proctor had sent search warrant to Verizon. Sandy said she knew her son. He wouldn't be walking on a rural road at night like investigators theorized. Stephen was very skittish, would never have walked down the road in the dark, and it's not likely he would have opened his car door to accept assistance from someone he did not know. You don't know if that's true or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Especially alone in the dark on a county road, she wrote. His autopsy showed his toxicology reports were negative for drugs and alcohol, so I have no reason to believe he would have done something so completely out of character. In the letter, Sandy Smith disputes MUCS pathology doctor Aaron Priestnell's theory that Stephen was hit by a car. In conclusion of Sandy's letter, with multiple other documents from the case and file attached, she pleads with the FBI to open an investigation into Stephen's death. We desperately need your help, she wrote. The investigation is being deliberately derailed. We need someone to hold the investigators accountable and access Stephen's phone. And so that's basically all of that.
Wow.
That's the timeline of things. Now, something came out in this recent court that now they're going to exhume the body of Stephen. What do you think perhaps may have came out?
Well, besides the Murdaugh's name in there, maybe a possible weapon or.
Well, what I mean is, what do you think would have came out? So they were investigating Paul and Maggie's passing, right?
Yeah.
Something came out of that, possibly, that made them, open up the case again.
Yeah. Well, besides their name, maybe they found something at their property when those other crimes got committed.
That's possible. I'm thinking that they may have found some sort of maybe messages or something that were to tie in of the hushing.
Yeah.
Here's the document. Here's the paperwork for the Hyundai Genesis. Here's or perhaps maybe while they were looking for photos of him with, and I'm talking about Alex Murdaugh with his badge to his hip.
Yeah.
Maybe perhaps of that alone, maybe they found something else that would lead them to believe that he was trying to get this hushed up.
It wouldn't be far-fetched, I'll tell you that.
No, man, it wouldn't. It would not. But this was a well-written timeline. Had a lot of um, um, information there. And after the show, I'll link it into the description so you guys can, go through this and read it on your own. Everything that was in there I have found on other websites as well and other places. It paints a picture that there's some corruption going on in that area. And, after the recent conviction of Alex Murdaugh, we can say that there was some corruption done by at least him in and around that time that this thing has happened.
Yeah, my question is still, like, why would they never subpoena the phone if they thought he was shot? You know what I mean? That should have been like the first thing they should have done to see if there's any possible leads on there.
Unless they knew he was and they didn't want to find out the answer.
Yeah, it didn't seem like this case was the priority.
No. Well, it seemed like somebody was really trying hard to sway it in one direction, because you had the highway patrol that were in that area saying, no, this is not a vehicle accident. They challenged the pathologist every step of the way. So you had law enforcement that worked for the state, not necessarily the immediate area, coming at the folks that were working in the immediate area saying, hey, there's more to this than what you're saying. And it seemed like a potential maybe cover up from those that were local there.
Yeah.
That's the way I read this. That's the way I kind of understood it, was that, this is what they were looking at. What do you think they can find from exhuming the body at this point that would lead back to a suspect?
It'd be hard to tell. I don't think much, because they did. It's not wearing the same clothes. I mean, he got changed into some funeral clothes, and I had to get reconstructed. But maybe they found maybe a weapon, and they have to like
compare
get the dimensions of it against the wound. So maybe they had to reconstruct the skull to see like where it hit.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
They never talked about the results of the rape kit either,
or the phone, or other things that they didn't talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot.
I really want to know what's going to happen with this second autopsy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to go after Buster. He doesn't have that surrounding cast that he had before to protect him.
Exactly.
For his mistakes or for when he does do things wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that if he did do this, it won't be any mercy. They're going to come right after him, and I don't think anybody is going to be wanting to cover their tail or risk their necks for him anymore.
Yeah.
Mountain Mama came through saying that Banfield just announced that there'll be more sealed court records be coming out any minute. Once that does happen, y'all, we're probably going to make a video on it, give you guys our perspective on it, and what we think of. So we would appreciate if you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, so that way, when that does come out, you're notified. The only way to be notified, though, is to ring that notification bell. But we're getting past an hour and a half now, so we're going to be putting a bow on this. Do we have any final statements, final words before we wrap it up?
Yeah. It's another crazy case, man, and just sad. To hear all the details of his injuries, it's just real sad. I feel for the parents and for the brothers and sisters and stuff.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. What about you? Do you got any final words before we put a bow?
No, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for taking their time. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And we passed that 35, guys, so we're going up there. Thank you for all y'all's help.
Thank you. Also, the mods and the members.
Mods and members, thank you guys. For the last 30 minutes, we had a members-only chat going on. We do intend on putting out some more videos out there for members only, so we highly encourage you to ring, to join the membership. We have some emojis that are coming out. We have some merch that's coming out as well. We've been working on that with the website and stuff. It's been kind of acting up on us, so we're going to get that going as well. and I have no idea what that was. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. And like the country song says, we tell you not to drink, but we don't want you listening drunk. So y'all have a good night, good weekend. We'll see you next time. Peace. All right, so let's see how long this takes before it ends.
Well, at least